YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today's video is kind of a special one for me. We are in the week of the Bassmasters Classic. You know, it kicks off here in a few days. We got the Fantasy Fishing Show coming in the next couple days, so that's going to be cool. But the Bassmasters Classic, I did qualify for it once. I fished one event. It was in 2012 at the Red River. Chris Lane won the tournament. And today, I want to kind of share with you my experience of the Classic. Not just how I caught them, how I didn't catch them, but also kind of behind the scenes on what went down at the Classic and just how grueling of a process that particular event is in comparison to the others. Because I'm going to tell you right now, guys, it's not even close. There's not another tournament that's more time-consuming and more pressure than that particular event. But real quick, if you have not yet, hit that sub button. It's in the bottom right-hand corner. It's a little square, and it says subscribe. For y'all you old men, just look for the red square. Don't try to read it. But and comment below, what's the biggest tournament you've ever been a part of? Have you fished a Classic, a tour event, a Bassmaster Open? What is the biggest tournament? I'd love to know what it is. And believe me, there's going to be no judgment here because, you know, was I blessed enough to fish that tournament? But I can look back at some tournaments that aren't as big a names, but I had just as much fun, actually probably more fun because I won them. But they were definitely a bigger event for me for my career. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and you'll see it right after this. Alright guys, today's video is going to be centered around the Bassmasters Classic. The Classic is the pinnacle of the sport for me. For what I compete in and what I do, to me, it is the mecca of all meccas. It's the one that it can truly change your career, and the fact that you go down in history as a Classic champion. It's just, I mean, there's that, you know, you hear the word indescribable. Like, if I was to win the Classic, that would truly be one of those moments where I'd be speechless. There's no, you couldn't put into words how much that would mean. So I qualified for the Bassmasters Classic back in 2011. I was the first college guy to make the Classic. I had to fish against my best friend at the time, Ryan Watkins, and still a great friend of mine and great dude. And we've reconnected over the last few years, and it's been fantastic. When I moved to Texas, that's going to be really great to go fishing with him again and travel with him a little bit and just kind of hang out and get back to our old selves. But the Classic in general, like I was told, Ish Monroe set me down and he said, man, the number one thing you got to do at the Classic is to get sleep. Anytime you get a chance to get sleep, you get sleep. And being, 20-something years old, I'm like, heck no, I don't need sleep. Like, who needs sleep? So we get to the Classic and, just like any tournament, you're going to have some boat issues. You're going to have things that go wrong. You're going to have to install something. And that's how this one was, too, in the beginning. Like, I had a couple things go wrong on the boat and had to install a couple graphs. I mean, it was a nightmare situation as far as that goes. And I was also coming off of about 2 weeks from knee surgery. So I couldn't walk hardly at all. I couldn't do really anything with my leg. It was bad. And so I was stacking those chips the wrong direction as far as that goes. But Ish was right. 1,000% he was right. So we have, I want to say, I can't remember exactly because, it's been a few years now. But I want to say it's 3 to 4 days. I think it's 4 days. But we basically had to park our boats at a particular place, and that's where we stored our boats. And during practice and the tournament, you had to hook up, and it was like there was a boat yard, and it was just this whole process of even getting to your boat. We were riding buses to get to the boats, leaving our trucks and boats there, and we're like shuttling back and forth from the hotel. We had to be up at 4 a.m. every morning, and the deal is like when you make the Classic, it's fantastic. There's only about 50 of you. I don't remember the exact number there was at that particular one. But the media wants to talk to you a lot. You get pulled in a lot of different directions every single day of practice, too. So, and I wasn't prepared for that at all. Why they want to talk to me? And so I was getting pulled in all these directions and then trying to practice. And then at the end of the day, rigging rods and all that. And then they came media day. Media day was where we sat down at a table, a bunch of tables, with a bunch of outdoor riders, And we basically talked the entire day. I mean, it was like an all-day process, registration and everything like that. And everybody's mean-mugging everybody. And that's funny, by the way. The guys try to intimidate you so bad. I always just kind of laughed at it because, I mean, I've had some really big defensive players lined up across from me that were a lot scarier than fishermen. But that's a whole different deal. But, you know, like, they're mean mugging each other, like they're trying to get in each other's heads, but that's the game, right? Like, I mean, we're all trying to get some type of edge anytime we can. But we get to the Classic, you know, and I have not gotten enough sleep. I'm like dead by the first day. Well, you know, I had a decent practice. I was catching them. If it was sunny, I could really catch them, like really, really catch them. Well, first day of the Classic, of course, it's not sunny. It's cloudy and windy and rainy and just nasty. And I don't even go to my fish on day one because I know for a fact they will not bite. Like, you needed the sun to catch them, so I kind of salvaged up 12 pounds that day, and I was sitting in the top 20, which was really good. And I knew on day two I had a shot to do extremely well. And I'll do my best to, like, walk you through the timeline. So I start on my same little stuff. I was catching them on a real small square bill in this one little area where I caught 12 pounds. That's how I caught them. Well, the second day I pull in there and I catch a 2.5 pounder right off the bat. And I'm like, all right, that's not bad. And I catch one more keeper, but I mean, it's like a tiny keeper. And I get ready to leave and I fire up around this laydown. And you know how you kind of get in a hurry to leave. You turn your boat. Well, I hook up about a 4.5 pounder. It wraps me around the tree, comes off. You know, water under the bridge. I'm about to go to my good stuff. So it's like 9:30, I've got a couple, and I'm getting ready to go to my really, really good stuff. Well, I get to my best stretch. I had one really, really good stretch of trees where I was flipping. I get through there, and I flip the entire stretch. Well, I get to the last little group of trees. I flip up there, hook one. It's another 4+ pounder. I'm going to say, I think it was a 5 pounder. I saw it. But let's just say it was a 4 pounder to be conservative. I lose it at the boat, and was just kind of like, oh man, that's like 2 big ones. And like, guys, 15 pounds a day was solid at this tournament. I mean, if you caught that every day, you were doing really good. 16, 17, you were doing excellent. So I was like, man, like I just kind of screwed that up a little bit. I can't do that again. Well, then I don't get any bites for a little while, and I start saying, okay, well, maybe my pattern wasn't that good. And so I pushed back in this one pond that hyacinths had basically covered this entire pond, and you could fish one little section about the size of 2 boats. When I get in there, I push back up in there. All the hyacinths from that wind the first day had pushed all the hyacinths to the other end of the lake, and you could fish so much of it. I was like, oh my gosh, like I might actually catch some fish in here. And I pull up, and I'll never forget this for the rest of my life, and I'll probably tell the story 1,000 times. I pick up a floating rogue, old school floating rogue, chrome blue back, orange belly. It's a bait that I'd caught them on for years at Toledo Bend, spawning. And, you know, we're kind of around the spawn at this point. I pull this thing up, I start throwing this rogue, and I'm looking because you can actually see in this little pocket. So, and I made a real long cast with that rogue, and I'm throwing on like 20-pound line. So I make a real long cast, and I look down, and I see a 5 pounder, 4 or 5 pounder. I mean, it's a big one. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I start burning this rogue in. And I'm just burning it as fast as I can to get it in to fish for this 5 pounder. Well, I get hung. So I thought I got hung. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I've already lost 2 giants. And now I'm hung trying to catch a 5 pounder off a bed. And I don't want to, like, get on my trolling motor to spook it. Well, all of a sudden, my line just starts cutting through the water. And I'm like, I got something. I don't know what I got, but I got something. And I'm reeling. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's a fish. But at this point, I hadn't jumped, hadn't pulled really hard. It was just really heavy. And I'm reeling this fish in. I get it to the boat, and I'm like limping down to go lip it. And I still haven't, like I said, I haven't seen this fish. The water was still kind of like tannicky. And I get it up next to the boat, and it's like a 7 or 8. Like legitimate, like my marshal that day was like, dude, that's one of the biggest fish he'd ever even seen. And I had it hooked across the back with that rogue. All 3 hooks were jammed in this fish's back. The back and the tail, so it was like the back end. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do at this point. So I'm like dragging it to try to like get my hand under it. And I touch the fish and it takes off. It realizes it's even hooked. Like it didn't even know it was hooked. This fish takes out. I stand up. I chase it down with the trolling motor. I get down again. We do this 5 times. Literally 5 times. I chase this fish down, get back up, chase it down again. Because there was no quitting this fish. And I mean, rightfully so. It wasn't even hooked in the mouth. He had all the leverage being hooked in the tail. And so I get him to the side of the boat again. I try to get my arm under him again. I can't get him. He swims off again. At this point, I am like physically exhausted. Like I can't stand up. I'm trying to stand up and I can't stand up. My leg is just done at this point. Like I'd gotten up 5 times and I'd hit my max. Like I couldn't stand up. And I just pressed the button and let him go out there. And I was kind of stuck up against a tree, so it wasn't going to pull the boat. And so I'm just like thumbing him. He gets out there, pulls off. And I had a meltdown, obviously. And so I lose this fish, and I'm just devastated because I knew at that point I'd blown the tournament. You can't come back from a 7 or 8 pounder at the Bassmasters Classic on day 2, much less lose 4 pounders. Like, you just can't. Like, you can't come back from that, especially at the Red River. Like, the odds of ever getting like, I've been there a bunch of times, and that's the biggest fish I've hooked, probably, like, close to double in size. I mean, minus a couple of 5 pounders. The biggest fish I've hooked, far and beyond. So, like, I'm not getting that chance again. Now, you go to Guntersville, Toledo Bend, Rayburn, Kentucky Lake, some of those, yeah, you might get that chance a couple times in the day, but not there. So, I go back over where that 5-pounder is. Lo and behold, I had muddied up the whole pond by doing circles, chasing that big, giant fish down, that I've just completely destroyed this pond at this point. There's no looking. There's no catching them doing anything else. I scratch up. I think I catch like one more 2-pounder, and I catch my limit. It weighs like 7.5 pounds. I dropped to like 20 or maybe even 30. I don't know. It was like the 20s or 30s. I don't remember the exact number. And I don't want to say I was like 21st and missed I missed the cut because I didn't catch them. But I walked out on that stage on the final day, and I was like in tears because it was still the coolest freaking place I'd ever been. There was nothing. I was actually talking to a buddy the other day. He was asking about, like, what was that moment for me? Like, what is the biggest draw for bass fishing? And it's like a drug. When you get on that classic stage, and I've been on a lot of stages. I've been on the Forest Cup stage. I've been on a lot of different stages. The only other time that's done it to me was at Cherokee. I went numb. Went full body numb. I was like out of body experience. Like, it was just like I was sitting there saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is actually happening." And that's how I was at the Classic. And you look at guys that have made it 10 times, 12 times. Do they still get that feeling? I don't know. I know when I walked across that Classic stage both days, especially day 1 when I actually had some fish, was the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And, I think that's where my biggest draw to go back to bass is because there's nothing that's ever been there for me other than winning. Like, I truly had to win the event to get back to the point where I was like numbing experience. The Classic's just in a league of its own, and I finished in the 20s or the 30s, and I still had that numbing experience. I love the sport of bass fishing. I think it's the best sport in the world. I've played a lot of the sports, and don't get me wrong, like, I've enjoyed those, and I've had a blast, but, like, fishing just does it for me. I mean, it's just a passion. It's a drive for me. But, guys, that is the background of my Bassmasters Classic experience. Is it a pro fishing tip? Nah. I mean, I'm not telling you how to catch them. I'm not showing you some secret method of rigging a plastic worm and tying a knot to a bait. But it was an experience of mine that I'll always remember. And even losing all those fish is still one of the best memories I've ever had. Second, or actually probably third, to marrying my wife and having my son. So, I mean, that's basically where I'm at. I mean, it was probably one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. And I hope I get there one day. I'm sitting 8th place in points in Bassmaster Opens right now in the overall. I got to do a little bit better. I got to finish in the top 3, but we have 5 events left. Guys, y'all been amazing. Y'all are, like, the reason I shoot these videos. I don't do it for any other reason. I don't get paid extra. I don't get any of that stuff. I shoot these videos because of y'all. And y'all always comment. Y'all always like my videos. And y'all are my driving force because I want to give you the very best content I can. I appreciate all of your support. And I hope y'all enjoy this video. And I'll see you on the next one.